there. Welcome to the It's Never Too Late show. I'm Marjorie Adams Fiore, your guest host for today's show. And the reason I'm your guest host is because I'll be interviewing Suzanne Oshima. Suzanne's a life and love transformational coach at Your Next Amazing Story. And today we're talking about, listen up, ladies, stop wasting time dating the wrong men. It's going to be so good. But Suzanne, before we jump in, I'd love for you to share with the audience who you serve and why.
Yeah, Marjorie, thanks so much. I'm so excited to have you here to turn the tables on me. I love doing this. But what I do is I help single women transform midlife into their best life and find love again in their next chapter. Because it always breaks my heart when I hear women in midlife feel like, oh, it's too late for me. I'm never going to find love again. I might as well just be alone the rest of my life, when I know that doesn't need to be that way. Is that she can find love again in her next chapter. But there's two things. She has to believe that she can, but also secondly is take action. And what I find is when a woman's been out of the dating world for a long time is she's like, what do I do? What do I say? So dating can be intimidating. So that's why I do what I do.
Great. And when a woman first starts dating a man, we always hopefully go in with our best intentions and with that's great, you should. But a lot of times she may be missing the red flags that shows he's completely the wrong man for her. What are those flags, or what are those three types of men that a woman might think is the right man, but you'll say, no, he's all wrong for her?
Well, he may be wrong for her, but I'll tell you. So type 1 is who I call Mr. Excitement. There's so much chemistry and attraction, and, quite honestly, we're all addicted to chemistry and attraction. And I've actually interviewed an expert about chemistry and attraction, and he says it's truly like a drug. And so when there's so much chemistry and attraction, and he's good looking, and when you see him, you're so excited to see him and you get butterflies, it can be blinding because we think that chemistry and attraction is the end all be all, and it's not always. And so it's really important for women, not to get blinded by all that chemistry and attraction, because like you said, she can really miss the red flags.
Okay, so Mr. Excitement, which I would call crash and burn. Okay, what's number 2?
I love that. You're absolutely right. Yeah. I love that little add-on. That's the footnote to Mr. Excitement.
Right.
So number 2 is who I call Mr. Charming. Mr. Charming he's charismatic. He's a total gentleman. He tells you all the things you want to hear. You're beautiful. You're the woman I've been looking for all of my life. And he's got that great big personality, right? And he's so charming that not only has he attracted you to him, he attracts all these other women too, because he's so charming. And so what's great about him and not so great is, we all want that man that is a gentleman, that he tells you you're beautiful, that he's been looking for, but it can also be a red flag. And usually what I find is if it is a red flag, Mr. Charming, I'm not saying every man who is charming is a red flag, but what I find with Mr. Charming is Mr. Charming can tend to rush things. He wants to move things along a little bit quickly, too quickly, in fact, where he wants to see you all the time. It goes from the first date to, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, we should hang out. And then you think, well, I like him, he likes me, and we have a great time. Why wouldn't I want to spend all this time with him? And so it goes from 0 to 60. It could also be that crash and burn scenario.
It sounds like more like smooth and scripted, where it's like this, it's almost he's playing a role. Like, this is I'm Don Juan. I'm this suave guy that's gonna, you know what I mean? I put my outfit on. It's like my uniform, and then I snap into that mode. And you're right. It's fun at first, and you want to be, you want to be friends with somebody like that. But if he's like that to everybody, then you don't want to be his main person.
Yeah, it can be a red flag. Again, I'm not saying every man who is charming or every man that you have chemistry and attraction, it's a red flag. But what I find is that these are the things that blind us from the red flags. And so the third type of man that can be all wrong for you is what I call Mr. Looks Good on Paper. We're all looking for, he has this, he has that, he doesn't have any of my deal breakers, so he has everything that you want, and he looks good on paper, right? But that doesn't necessarily translate into he's the right man for you. And what I mean by that is what we forget sometimes is when a man looks good on paper, we don't think about certain things. We think about more things like, oh, is he financially secure? Is he confident? Is he, do we have the same values and interests, right? But
Right.
what we sometimes forget to think about, Mr. Looks Good on Paper, how does he treat me? How does he make me feel? Right? And you have to think about, are my basic needs being met in the relationship? And so Mr. Looks Good on Paper doesn't necessarily translate into he's the right man for you.
Okay, I have a fourth type.
Okay.
If he's Mr. Looks Good in a tank top, can you just like have fun and date for the sport of it? For practice?
Well, it depends. It depends. And here's why I say that is, look, we all want to have fun. We all have our needs, right? Is you can, but here's where I see it go off track. Is a woman starts off and, you know what? I have needs, I need sex too, and he looks good. I know he's not long term, but, he looks good, right? And so she thinks going into it that, I can have sex with no strings attached. But what I always find is at a certain point, it switches for the woman where then she wants more. Her heart starts to get involved and she starts to like him a little bit more and she wants more of a commitment. And he's like, nope, it's no strings attached. And he pulls back and then she's left heartbroken. So I think it's really important for a woman to get really clear on what you want. Do you want a relationship that leads to partnership or marriage again? Or do you just want sex? Because if you just want sex, then go for it. But I invite everybody to get really honest with yourselves of what you truly want. Because
and I was totally teasing, because I think that also if you know there's really no substance there, then you're kind of wasting the time that you could be finding somebody that is a perfect match for you or that is more long term. So I was totally teasing, but I understand what you're saying. It's kind of like, it's just a decision. We're all big girls, but I think, again, it's another great thing about being in midlife and even older is because we already know what we've seen the games, the facades, and we know like a smooth talker, even though it's nice to be swept off your feet. It's like we know what we like at this point. And even if we don't want to be alone, the majority of us still want a real connection. We want it to be easy and fun and balanced. And I think that we all have, we need to listen to our intuition at this point, that internal red flagness thing that we've, developed over time, and really pay attention to it.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem, though. I'm glad you mentioned the intuition, because we as women do have intuition. And there is always something that gnaws at us when something's off. And so it's important to listen to that and to not ignore it when it comes up with any of these three men, because there's so much chemistry and attraction, or because he's so charismatic and charming, or because he looks good on paper and that's what I'm supposed to end up with, right? Is we can have what I call not only missing the red flags or being blinded by those things, right? Is ignoring the red flags, but also it's having selective sight. You know how they talk about selective hearing, right?
Wow. Mm-hmm.
it's selective sight. Like, you only see the good. You don't see anything bad, and because of all the other things, and then you choose to see what you want to see. And then at a certain point, what I've also seen women do with these type of men is, because, you know, he looks good on paper, there's so much chemistry and attraction, or he's such a gentleman, there's so much charisma, is that she talks herself into thinking that he's still perfect, and talks herself out of that 9 intuition or that gut feeling that something's off. And she's like, oh, you're just imagining things. And so she talks herself out of it. And then at a certain point, it ends up in a complete disaster. And then, you know, and they break up or whatever happens. And at a certain point, she'll ask herself, did I see those red flags? And she'll go, yeah, I saw them. I just chose to ignore them.
Yeah, I would love, like, that would be such a great, I don't know if it should be like a book or just a sheet, that if you did a poll and asked your audience, like, how many times they ignored a red flag or a red flag lesson, you know, looking back, because it'd be a lesson and really kind of fun laughter for the rest of us too. I'm sure we all have those stories, and some of them are funny and some of them are really heartbreaking. It's so timely. Just today, I was in one of the women over 50 girlfriend groups on Facebook that has hundreds of people in it. And this woman posted that she just started dating a guy 2 weeks ago, you know, head over heels, hadn't dated in a long time. Their ages are great. Their kids are all grown. She goes, I just realized he drinks more than I'm comfortable with. He told me he's so glad we're dating because I can help him with that, because she confronted him, all this stuff. His dad was out, and 900 comments were like, run for the hills, run for the hills. Like, what else do you need? It's so soon. Just don't do that. And women, especially when it's something like substance abuse, but it's so funny when the red flag is like right in front of you, bright red, you know, and you're still kind of like, well, maybe this will be the one that I can change. And maybe this will be, you know, we can work through that together. It's like, you know, those kinds of things where take a step back, and it's like, yeah, it's not fun to be alone, but have your self-respect and you have peace at night, and don't take on that burden from somebody else. I mean, there's so many, that's why we do have great intuition, and it's like, oh, why do I feel this way? Or why am I thinking about that? And we need to really tune into that, because we've shut that down for so long, because we have taken care of our kids and everybody else's needs up to this point. So now our intuition and, you know, what our soul really wants and our heart is a little more clear, because we have a little bit more free time in our heart and our head to really listen to that. And that's why it's so important to tap into it.
Yeah, I love that you shared that story of the woman in that group, because, you know, we as women, we want to save people, right? Mm-hmm. Or we want to, like you said, fix them. And, you know, we can't save everybody. And I you know, that saying when you're on a plane is you can't put on or you can't put on, now I'm going to get it backwards.
You put your oxygen mask on before you
put your child's right. It's the same thing, right? And it's the same thing if, you know, if you're out swimming and you need a life jacket, you got to put yours on first before you throw someone to another person. I totally boggled that, but everyone gets the idea.
It's another saying that I just the other day too, which you've heard, where it's like, we know how hard it is to change ourselves. Why do you think you're going to be able to change somebody else? Like, if you know how the things you set, like, on here's my goals for the month and this and that, and here's the new habits and routines, and you're like, oh, I didn't even do that this month. And why do you think you're going to be able to do that with somebody else? But, you know, my best advice for her, and I should go back in there, and I didn't respond. I'm like, she's got enough feedback, enough. I should tell her to get a dog. Like,
well, yeah, and you don't want to take on a project at this point in our lives, right? Is we as women in midlife is we've raised our children, right? And we don't need to take on another project or a child where we need to save him. It's like if he's drinking more than she's comfortable with, she already knows that. It doesn't get better. It doesn't get better. He has to want to save himself. It's not up to her to want to save him.
Yeah, and I think that just looking back at the whole red flag thing, and I mean, I think there could be some times too where maybe the guy's actually okay, but you still don't you feel off, that's okay too.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yes.
Like you
Yes.
can't put your finger on it, but it's like, it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah. Listen to your voice on the inside and trust that voice, because 9 times out of 10, your voice is right on the inside.
Right, right. Well, I was going to ask you for anything else, but I think that's probably the best point to make. Gosh, I could talk to you about this all day. It's so important and so needed because you do put yourself out there when you're dating, but we also just have to take responsibility for our own. I mean, only you know what you feel. Only you know why you feel a match with somebody and you don't. I mean, I look at couples all day long and I'm like, how did they hook up? What's their connection? They're total opposites, or oh my gosh, they're so much alike. But that's why we're all different and unique, and there is somebody out there for us. But I know to expand on this, you have a free online masterclass, which I think would be a great place for people to start. And it's the secrets to meeting a quality man. So I know there's secrets. You won't tell us about them, but tell us a little bit about that masterclass and then how people can get registered for it.
Sure. Well, I won't tell you the secrets on here, but you can watch the masterclass, and you can find out the secrets where I'm going to tell you the number one way to meet a quality man. I'm also going to share with you the real reason why you're not meeting any quality men online. And trust me, it's not because there aren't quality men online. There are quality men. It's just it has something to do with your profile. And lastly, I'm going to tell you the secret formula on how to turn it around, because I want you to meet quality men online so that you don't have to settle with all the wrong men, the Mr. Charisma, the Mr. Looks good on paper, and the Mr. Excitement, or what Marjorie calls crash and burn man.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can sign up for that masterclass if you're on the video. Click right here on the video, or if you're watching the podcast, you can go to yournextamazingstory.com.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. I'm sure you enjoyed it as much as I did on the It's Never Too Late show. The show is available in both video and podcast format and can be found at the same place where you register for the masterclass, and that's yournextamazingstory.com. Take care.